Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online. I am Adderall, here with Arcia. How you doing?
Doing well.
Great. We're here with Hateless too.
Hello.
And I'd like to introduce to you a pilot from EVE Online. I don't know, it looks like Caldari. This is Rich Richmond.
Hello. I'm Rich Richmond.
You certainly are. All right. Today we're going to talk about the patch notes, especially the encounter surveillance system, the ESS, and how that's going for pilots around the nullsec where they are located. We'll also get into a war update and talk about a keep star that went down in 49U. And today we're going to have some CEOs here from Requiem, now Eternal Requiem, as opposed to Requiem Eternal. And they've had some administrative snafus there. We'll talk to the CEO of Requiem. His name is Fight. We'll also talk to the CEO of ChemiKals, which is a group out of Goonswarm that decided to go into wormholes. And one of their FCs actually decided to go over to NCDOT. So we'll meet him, Eves, in a little bit. So stay tuned and stick with us as we go into some EVE Online for this week. All right, so first things first, the patch notes. I don't know if you can show a picture of the patch notes. People have already seen them and stuff. But the big stuff here are the ESS changes in how people have new incentives to go into nullsec that is owned by somebody. So it's only solve null, not NPC null. And where people rat, and a lot of their, a portion of their winnings will actually go into a pot that is up for grabs. So in 3 hours, they get it if nobody else touches it. But if some bandits come around and try to reach into that pot and take that cash for themselves, you either defend your pot or you lose it. So, Arcia, let's start with you. You've been playing with this. What do you think?
So let me start off by saying it's one of my favorite updates in quite some time. I've had a lot of fun roaming and taking ESSs. And some groups have gotten really, really good at responding really quick. Fraternity, unsurprisingly, has been really, really quick at dropping a big response fleet at you and defending their earnings. And some other people just kind of let you take it. But it's really done its job so far that it's forced a lot of people to take fights kind of before they've been completely ready to hell dunk you. In the past, when you would roam, if you stuck around in an area, they would slowly form up until they can definitely like 100% hell dunk you without losing anything. But the ESS kind of puts a time pressure on them to react quicker, and you kind of get better fights out of it because of it sometimes.
The kitchen sink fleets are fun to fight. That's all I'm going to say.
Definitely. And it's going to be a new skill in protecting your ESSs and being able to form quick response fleets to take out roaming gangs. And those who do it well, the ratters will get more money. And I think it's a very good compromise between the decreased safety that they tried in Blackout that was rejected and the payouts, because I think the problem was people were making too much money too safely. And this kind of like, you have to kind of fight for the full value now. So you get to choose. You can still choose to dock up and just let them take it and just go with the half of your normal cut. But if you choose to put effort into defending it, and sometimes that means putting yourself out there at risk of losing a ship, you get more money, and I think that's fantastic.
I agree. Fraternity definitely has one of the most aggressive response fleets I've experienced. They're incredibly good at countering whatever you bring, and they're incredibly good at going into the ESS and fighting and defending. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad to see it, because now whenever we roam into different spaces, whether they be, well, wherever we are, at the end of the day, most of the times, we don't go home without nothing. It's not always a waste of time. We can often go home with a bit of pocket money, a little kitty, worth of money.
That
Those who
is,
defend it, well, it's an interesting fighting grid, the whole Hexgram mechanic, and there's not much in terms of, I guess, development in terms of fittings, but there is potential for so much more.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's definitely, it always used to be depressing when you'd go like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 jumps and get like absolutely nothing on a slow night. But now you're guaranteed, like if nobody fights you, you get some money. And if somebody fights you, you got what you were looking for anyway, right? So it really is a big boon for the roaming hunting playstyle that I do so enjoy.
What I love about it is it hurts people that purposely avoid a fight or do not fight at all, those that stay docked. And the ones I'm primarily talking about are obviously bots. Bots don't fight back. Bots don't like fighting, and bots use a lot of ways to keep themselves safe. Now they are punished for, botting. Real players who actually respond to things, real players who actually will undock to PvP, they have a chance of killing the people who tried to steal from them. It's a content generator. I've gotten fights everywhere at this point, and if I can't get a fight from one ESS, maybe I'll get a fight from another.
One of the stereotypes, I guess, is that, hey, some people just want to rat in peace. Why are they forced to PvP or lose half of their earnings? And you've said something that's interesting. You've said, I've gone out there, I fought a lot, gotten some good fights and had some fun, but I've also fed. So is it the sheep being hunted by the wolves in this case, or are these guys that are coming to take your money beatable?
They're definitely beatable.
Yeah, so Defender has every advantage in the book. They see the person coming local. They can go dock up. They can go get a D-scan on whatever's going on in the gate. They can even watch it go in the gate. If they have a cloak ship sitting on that gate, they can watch it go in the gate and see exactly what they're fighting. And then after that, they can go form up. They got 5 minutes. They can go form up and go dock up. Hey, I need this to kill that. And then go fight them. They have every advantage that you could possibly want. You got home field advantage. You can defend it.
Yeah, you have your ships in the area. I have to go back to Thera or wherever. You have all your friends. You have intel channels. You have all these things that we don't have. And what is different now is back before the ESS change, they would slowly form up until they have super mega overwhelming numbers 100% of the time. And now there's a little bit of a time pressure, so you can't do that. You have to either be able to form up really, really, really fast, which some groups like Fraternity are able to do, or you have to engage maybe in an unideal situation, or you have to lose the money, right? You don't have as much time to just mega dunk everybody, and that's really good for the game, forcing people to engage in imperfect circumstances.
I love the change to the meta that this has done, because now there's a lot more AB ships, and we've actually found an interesting quirk.
Afterburners.
Afterburners, yes. And that is, if you fight a fleet specialized for fighting inside of an ESS, and you manage to, say, catch them outside of an ESS, they are in deep trouble. Because inside of the ESS, most people do not fit scrams. They don't fit points, because there's no point. They fit webs. And outside the ESS, they're slower, and they only fit webs. A lot of people who we've fought against, we've caught them outside of the ESS, and, we've been able to try out new tactics. We've been able to theorize new ships. There's ships that we otherwise would never have flown, things like the Eagle. We're thinking, does the Eagle have its potential in this ESS fighting composition?
Yeah, so what are some... Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What are some of the fits that you guys like? Because I'm sure there's a doctrine, or there's good ideas and bad ideas on what to use to go in here and take these ESS banks.
Well, unsurprisingly, ships like the Phantasm and the Nightmare have been really, really popular because of the afterburner bonus. But I like I had a lot of success with 100 MN Harbinger, but my answer to everything is a Harbinger. I had 100 MN Oracle that was kind of fun, and that's still alive.
So on the Oracle, I did something really dirty the other day, and I took in an Oracle, and instead of 2 shield extenders on it, I put 2 sensor damps and stayed 50 km off of everything. They couldn't even lock me.
So
yeah,
sad.
I was just doing a shield Oracle, so that's fun with the damps. Ugins are really good because they can web at the long range, which is really important in the bubble when everybody's afterburning around.
We're doing a lot of oversized prop mods. We feel that's quite important for some of the compositions we use. And there's 2 school of thoughts right now. There's the brawling composition, which is a lot of heavy blaster, close range type of things that sit on 0 of the warp in. And then there's the snipey long range ones, which take advantage of the fact there's, a Hexgram, and it takes a long time to afterburn out of it. We've also figured out some sort of, I guess, archetypes and roles. We especially use a Phantasm as the person who gets the money and gets out with the money.
So
Nice.
What we've been doing is I have an alt and an interceptor, and the interceptor is called Getaway Car. After we grab the money, we just drop it to the scepter. And I'm kind of like a dummy because I still tackle stuff with the scepter, but it hasn't died yet. Because the scepter, like you say, we don't have any points outside of the ESSs. We had, last night we had 1 point on a stabber, and then the scepter had a point in a scram, and that's all we had for points, right? In like a 9-person gang. But there are a number of options of getting the tokens back safely. A lot of people have been using the cargo deposit and asset safety. I like the scepter because I operate out of Thera a lot, so the scepter can just kind of shuffle stuff back to Thera really, really quickly and safely. Another thing that a lot of people I've noticed don't know is that you can activate the acceleration gate from 90 kilometers away. There's a big radius around it that you can activate it. It's just a faction warfare complex. A lot of people are warping to 0, and so there's some play on the outside, because if you bubbled it, even if you warp at range, people will land at 0. So you can get something. You can't cloak within the radius, the massive radius of the acceleration gate, but there can be some weird play on the outside and such, because you can land at range, or you can bubble the gate and force people at 0 and all sorts of stuff like that.
So something like a railgun rock hanging outside of the bubble would be kind of nasty, sitting there cloaked, waiting.
Warp at range does not land at 0. You can warp up to 100. You can't warp to an ally. It's dead space. So you can't warp on grid. Yeah. You can't warp to an ally, but you can warp to 100, right?
Oh, for the defender, they could put the rock inside, slow boat it outside of the bubble, and then cloak it up, and it can sit out there, then decloak after somebody comes in. Like I said, the defenders have a huge advantage.
Yeah, definitely. I was responding to somebody who said you couldn't warp at range in chat. I'm sorry if that was confusing.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's my bad. I just kind of did it without saying anything.
Rich, let's see that coin again. That was awesome. Where's your... There you are. You remind me of Vic. You know that trailer with Vic, the bounty hunter that goes around? Well, let's
thank you.
let's lose the glasses if you feel comfortable taking them down, so we can actually relate to your soul rather than the mirror of our soul. All right, so those are some of the fits that you guys have trying. Some of the tactics. The getaway car is hilarious. I love that. Rich, there was also a way of sneaking ships in that shouldn't even be there, right? What was that?
No, well, we discovered that if somebody dies in a battleship and they have something in the frigate escape bay, well, the frigate would pop out. And the thing with frigates inside of an ESS Hexgram bubble is if you have a prop mod on it, especially an oversized prop mod, they are incredibly fast and they are very difficult to hit. So there is a potential you bring a battleship in, you put something incredibly dangerous inside of an ESS grid like a crucifier, or even better, a sentinel, and you can either eject out on purpose and trade it with a friend who comes in a cheap cruiser, or you can just use a battleship until it dies. And with this, frigate, you can really upset some fights inside of a hit grid. However, this may be a bug. The CCP may not have intended this, apparently, but we'll see if they change the mechanics regarding the frigate escape bay and this ESS bubble.
How would you change that? Like, so, I mean, the frigate escape bay is just part of a battleship now, so I don't see a way of letting battleships in and not letting the frigate escape bay
That's
happen.
just more depth to the meta, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think the idea about no frigates allowed in these ESS areas was just to keep people from running in, grabbing stuff, and running out before anybody could react, I imagine.
I don't
So
think
if you're-
people are just. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So if you're bringing in a battleship and you have a frigate inside of it, maybe that's not against the nature of what they were trying to do, and maybe that's allowed. I don't know.
Yeah.
Another defender's advantage, I guess.
Yeah, I don't see somebody like leaving the battleship behind and running away with 50 million in a frigate. Like, you got me. Take your battleship now.
It was more of a case of we would put something cheap cruiser in, like a cruise. A auger or something that's not very useful, and we'll just boat it off and jump ships and change pods and all that type of fun stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
But I'm really glad to see the fights that we've gotten because of this. There's so much to be explored in terms of the meta and the fittings. There's just limitless potential. I haven't slept since I roamed this morning, just thinking of new ways we could mess around with the grid, whether we brawl or snipe or a mixture of the two.
Have you guys noticed how the popularity of ESS? Are we in the early days? Because it only came out Tuesday.
Well, obviously, I'm in in the part of like the community that like absolutely loves it, so I'm biased. But like everybody who I'm talking to, for the most part, loves. I've heard there's been people who are like purely PvE players who don't like the change and such. But I think overall, most people like it.
Honestly, I think it's good for the game. It'll draw more players in. Being able to have a flashpoint of content like that you can just jump into. Like you can be sitting in Jita, and go buy your ship, go yeet out, get content within minutes, and that is fantastic.
Yeah. We've heard a few players coming back because that's appealing to them, the ability to get right into it and actually get into the spaceship combat right away. It is at the expense of people who want some peace and quiet, though. And I don't know, it might be early, how interfered with they actually are. Like I said, fraternity's defending themselves pretty fiercely, right?
Yeah, very, very fiercely. And they're not the only ones who we've seen form up pretty well. So like, it's definitely not like gloom and doom for the ISK focused people who just want to make money. It's something that you have to do to secure that space, like the maximum value of that space. Because before it was just like, I keep saying this, but it was just too easy. And now like it does take a lot of work to secure as much value as you had before. And I think that's very good for the game.
Yeah, the people who I know who do a lot of ratting in null block space, most of them aren't happy with it. And there's a common feeling that it makes it ratting not worthwhile enough to be worth doing, and that it'll therefore mean that there will be not as many targets out in space to hunt, even if you're one of the people hunting.
I mean,
that was Gergorin, who I didn't introduce at the beginning. He's one of our researchers.
So what's going to happen, or my prediction of what's going to happen, is the people who are ratting for money might slow down ratting, but there will be a new kind of ratting where people will rat to attract attention to get more people to come for a fight. Like that's going to be a thing, and it's exciting to hear that.
I was thinking about that, a wing of miners, basically, that you kind of bring onto your alliance, and to have them as kind of attractors or bait or something.
So
go ahead, Arcee.
I think that well, right now it's hotter than it's going to be after it settles down, because it's a brand new thing and a lot of people are trying it who might not be doing it as regularly as they're doing it now. But I think there's also going to be a lot of content of the roaming gangs fighting the other roaming gangs, right? like it's not gonna. Even if like the ratters slow down, the roaming gangs will fight other roaming gangs too. Like there's just so much going on.
Okay, we're going to try to get. We're going to go ahead, and then I'll go ahead.
Boost has a question. Why would your rat attract people that instead of going hunting? So why would you rat to attract people instead of going hunting? Well, you build that big pot. It increases the generation of income because the more combat that happens in your system, you get a bonus to the bounties. You make more money. It kind of snowballs into a better thing, which is good.
Speaking of the big pot, I'm interested to what will happen with the reserve banks, because these reserve banks are getting quite big, and by the time they place out the keys, I believe they're going to be quite sizable, into the multi-billions. And I hear speculation that this is going to stage a lot of medium to large scale fights where somebody would bring in a key which will take much longer to unlock, and they're going to have a proper brawl, a proper fight over who gets this reserve bank and all the billions it holds. I'm curious to see what kind of fights it brings.
There's going to be another gold rush, yeah. But with bigger fleets for the bigger pots, right?
All right, let's bring in a couple people that are kind of on the other side of this. These are more high-sec guys. Let's bring in their cameras too. Go ahead, Sully, light up your camera. You guys know Sully. He's part of TIS, does our live streaming for us, also part of Razer. And I would like to introduce also at this time Fight 284, who is the leader of Eternal Requiem. Formerly, the alliance was called Requiem Eternal. Don't see his cam up yet. All right, so Sully, what's been your experience with ESS on the other side of that?
So, being in soft null, it's good fun because we're using doctrines and things we don't really use. Like Marauders are quite fun in this, especially the Paladin with the ability to change range. So even if you have people that are brawling fit, see what you're coming in with, and they want to run away, you take a Paladin there and it's like, oh, they're 40k. Okay, I'll load that script, and you can just start whacking on them. I quite enjoy the Vindicator because when I'm sat at 0 on someone, I'm doing 1600 DPS to them. Not a lot of ships survive that. We had a Typhoon yesterday roaming through. He just got webbed down, Vindicators come in, and things just started to delete him pretty quickly. But there's also a flip side in that at times you have to defend the ESS. You can't just rat for an hour and then log off, because half of what you earn is now at risk. So you have to kind of pick and choose when you do PvE activity or just stay up to defend it.
All right. Do we have Sully's sound up a little bit? Make sure everybody's getting it. Okay, cool. Thanks, Sully. Also want to introduce Fight. Have you experienced being part of Requiem? Have you guys experienced the ESS yet on one side or the other?
For us, the majority of the ESS is a hassle for ADMs because we don't do a lot of ratting in our space. Impasse is probably some of the worst space that you could have for ratting, period.
Okay. And it is early days. It's only this came out Tuesday, so we're less than a week out of when this happened. But as you can tell, the upbeat vibe is coming from people that get a chance to go into nullsec and actually do a thing, either fight or find some money and rinse and repeat. And with the I'm going to call it teleporting mechanism of what are they called? Fleets? No.
I definitely do think that there's going to be the exactly what Hateless said, where there's going to be a new style of ratting where people just sit there and make money in order to attract fights to them, let the fights come to them, and they can get the best of both worlds. But, yeah.
Okay, yeet is what I was thinking of, and I got mixed up with filaments. So
filaments, we call them yeet because you just randomly end up somewhere. Yeah.
Right.
To infinity and beyond.
It's so much fun. It just all these things coming together, the changes that they've been kind of making for the last year, they're all coming together right now. And I really think that it's a great time to start playing the game and enjoy the game right now. And that's fantastic for everybody involved. From the person that rats all day to make ISK, that ISK then goes to help incentivize somebody to build a ship. Ship gets built, ship gets blown up, the cycle completes. We go around again.
It's so funny you're all in on this. I didn't know how you would be adapting to it. Hateless,
Well,
I thought.
I'm a high-sec Care Bear. That doesn't really impact me very much.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to see people having fun, and that's what's fantastic about it. And it's a great flashpoint. Like, I don't PvP. I don't like roaming 50 jumps to find a fight or looking for half an hour in nullsec to find somebody in a thing. There's an incentive now for people to go do it. There's people looking for fights because there's a goal, there's a reason, and people are excited for it. And that's fantastic. And this is something that is encouraging me to PvP, which is abnormal.
Yeah. And Arcia was saying earlier, this is one of her favorite upgrades to the game, right?
Yeah, after being so disappointed with the Pochven update, this is exactly what I needed. This is kind of just something that really buffed one of my favorite activities in the game, which is the hunting roaming. And I am super, super, super happy with it. I'm loud when I don't like something, and I'm going to be loud when I like something.
That's fair. All right. And Sully, you were saying from the other side of it, has it been okay? Has it been a pain?
It is a very mixed bag. Because you do get the people that are enjoying flying the Doctrine ships, the big battleships, the brawling battleships that you don't really fly because outside the ESS, people will just drive away from you or kite you at range. Whereas in the ESS, if you're a defender and you've got, say, 500 million in, okay, if I put my Vindicator in first, they have to come to me at 0. Or if you pre-stage, say, nightmares, then you can be at 50 kilometers, which they will not really be able to do much to you at that range. So you can just kind of poke away at them. Or subsequently, as we found over the last 2 days, if you have enough people sat in the SS just defending the 500 million or so in there, most groups will just kind of look to move on to find an easier target. But there is a lot of requirement now on the people who just want to PvE for an hour at a time, 30 minutes at a time. They have to either accept that they could lose their risk or be willing to defend it.
Yeah. Well, how does that sit with you though? Like,
see, I'm very much I love PvP. I've always loved brawling battleships, so I'm having good fun defending it. But I know a lot of people in my alliance and coalition aren't as happy because they don't really do that much PvP, so they are kind of being forced into it just to defend their risk. I mean, one member of my coalition, he's had about 2 billion stolen from his ESSs just because he's unable to defend it and he rats in a quiet area of the space.
It's got to be hard to watch 2 billion of what you would think of as your money go away.
Yeah, it's quite a difficult pill for some of the people to swallow, just because we've I think the biggest gang we've had so far is a 20-man Gnosis fleet came through, and it's quite difficult to form a defense with 6-7 minutes notice. So the ESS was taken. We was able to clear some of the ships, but we didn't recover the tokens because they was managed to be escaped using I believe it was an interceptor as well.
The getaway car.
Yeah.
Over there laughing. She might have been the one that took it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't have a Gnosis fleet, but that's exactly what I do. Yeah.
So, Rich, have there been, or any of you but primarily Rich here, have there been like people fighting over ESS? Have there been two fleets bumping into each other while they're trying to? Has there been any like
Yes.
wolf on wolf action? Has there been any of that?
Oh yes, there certainly was. We found somebody cross-raiding their neighbor. They were just a neutral, independent alliance. They were raiding their neighbors, which were, I believe, frat renters or one of their vassals. And we found them. We figured out they had a curse in the ESS. We caught one of their ships outside the ESS, which posed a huge problem for them. they could either slowly afterburn out and then walk back to save him, or they could lose a ship and lose a man. So we caught them, we killed them, and then we moved our own fleet into the ESS to force them off. We killed some of them there, and we caught the rest of them trying to evac, and we killed them on the gate and took all the money they got from the ESS.
Oh.
I also had a case of kind of somewhat cooperation with another hunter at one point, because we went into the ESS and there was a solo Tusker's Macarial on the outside, and then like the locals started forming up and they were kind of forming slowly on the outside. We got the ESS money, burned out of the bubble, bounced, contacted the Macarial and said, we're going on grid to fight the locals. We're not going to shoot you. Do what you will. Right? Not going to shoot you unless you shoot us. And we went after them, and I was like fully prepared to just like not shoot at the other roamer guy while we fought the locals, but the locals buzzed off immediately. They were like aligned.
Well, I like that. That's the other side of it, right? Cooperating when you're out there. All right. Well, cool. Thanks for reporting in on ESS. This is, again, early days, right? This is the first week, and people are already finding some excitement about it. We'll see if it's long-term. That was also the other side of it, people who feel like they're watching their money kind of get taken away without them being able to do much about it. Not necessarily a motivating feeling. Let's see, there's other parts to this patch that we want to talk about as well. And part of that is just real quick, the new Jita. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's shiny. Sorry.
It's pretty. It's easy to undock. You don't get cluttered on that little undock anymore. And guess what? It's aligned to perimeter.
Yeah, that was the thing. So it used to be when you undocked and you wanted to go through perimeter, which led to half of the map, right? So half the people, you'd have to make a sharp turn, and sometimes you would get caught on the structure itself. And so you think you warp to the gate, and 10 minutes later, you're bouncing off the structure, not being able to even get to it. So
my favorite part about the Jita change is on the first day, thousands of ships just their market alts and newbie frigates burning out for 20 hours in like a big cluster of like Punishers and yeah.
Why you don't spend 12 million that's on a bookmarker and go make a bookmark in 2 minutes? Like, come on, guys.
No, I burned my market alt in a Punisher for 16 hours.
So explain to people who don't know what you're talking about, what they were doing.
All right, so they were making insta undock bookmarks, which it's aligned to perimeter, but if you're going through another gate, you want to be able to undock and instantly warp off grid in case you have like war targets or there's gankers or something on the station undock. So basically when you undock, you're invulnerable until you act. And all you can do is either stop your ship, which retains invulnerability, but anything else you do, it breaks your invulnerability. But if you have an insta undock, you undock and you warp to that undock and you just instantly warp, so you can't be grabbed by war targets or gankers or anything like that. So people were making their new insta undock bookmarks because the orientation of the undocks changed.
Yeah, it protects you against a lot, and it really is a useful thing to have. The best way to make them is to hop into something cheap and fast. You can put a 50 MN micro warp drive onto a Punisher with a couple power cores or whatever they're called, and then they go. Yeah, they go like 6-7 kilometers a second with no heat. You can make them gap stable, and then you just undock it and turn it on. Walk away for 20 minutes, come back, and you got a good bookmark.
Yeah, you should have insta undocks and insta dock bookmarks to any station you regularly use. They're very, very important. You will really, it'll come in handy. It'll definitely come in handy.
Well, that's funny. Well, some of the neat things about this new design that they have is it has a whole city center in on the back of Jita, so it feels like it's actually a city with skyscrapers towering above you, and you can even see a replica inside the game of what is that? monument to the players of EVE Online. So there's one in Iceland, and there's a replica inside the virtual world as well. But overall, a really nice visual upgrade. Took them, I'm sure, a ton of work, and it took the game months and months and months to finally see it. We saw it under construction over the last year, I would think, and here it is, like now fully done. So
one thing that I would like to note is that Jita has been significantly laggy since this patch. I don't know if they're going to be able to fix that, but at this time, it's pretty laggy in Jita, and I think that I have no idea why. It's been laggy since this patch, and I think it's related to the station.
Yeah, you would think. There's also some additional.
It might be all the fireworks being shot at the event things.
Maybe it's chunky and laggy, and it doesn't feel right. Like even interacting with things inside the station. Whenever you're in Jita, it's fine. It has a hard time, and then anywhere else, it's fine. It's only in Jita. I think it's the station asset. Something with it is weird.
You mean on the grid when you're near it?
No, you come into Jita. The second you're in Jita, it's laggy and clunky, and the entire system.
Oh, the system. Yeah. Okay.
Jita is normally on its own node. That's weird.
Yeah, I know, and it's only Jita that's experienced, or well, at least I've noticed it. I don't know how many people have, but I noticed it on all my clients and everything.
Is it in all time zones, or?
Yeah, I've had a inconsistent sleep schedule, and I've noticed it 24/7.
Asafar is saying leggy, which is what it sounds like when you say laggy, but I like that. Right. So what else was in this patch, I think, that caught your guys' attention?
I mean, there's that clone bay on the supers. I don't have direct experience with it myself. I've been focusing on the ESS. Yeah. But the clone bay on the supers, the new ship maintenance bay animation for everybody that has a ship maintenance bay. I'd be interested in hearing if there's any interesting uses if there's been any interesting uses of the clone bay on the supers from our null pals, maybe.
So
Sully saw that, right?
Yeah, we've got some potential uses of it, but it's very tricky to know how it's going to work in a specific fleet fight. The plan we've got at the moment is some super pilots who are willing to can load up with interdictors and things like that, which allows them to reship other interdictor pilots that are podded on the grid. Interdictors being the one ship that is more likely going to be the target for every ship to shoot, because no one likes being bubbled.
I also had sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's where it's going to be used at the moment, but it's hard to figure out because it's so early days with the module. It's hard to know where its downsides are going to be and what uses it's going to have, whether you're going to have multiple for different types of ships, or if you're going to have one ship that just has a small restock. One thing that could be particularly useful is if a super is on grid at, say, a Keepstar bash, and the FC's monitor is doomsdayed by Keepstar, having a spare monitor in a Supercarrier could be quite useful, because we've had it a few times now attacking on Keepstar grids from the Imperium, where they are able to doomsday a ship and it bounces to the FC's monitor just because the monitor has the biggest mash. We've seen quite a few monitors die that way.
Yeah, we've seen 5 monitors at once die in a single shot from the Keepstar a few times.
Wow.
Another question I had for the null block pals. So the ship maintenance bay on the super has been doubled, so it's twice as big as it was 5 million meters squared, I think, or however many. Does that impact like how deployments and moving around might be? You might be able to carry more stuff than normal.
Super capital pilots will definitely have an easier time filling up their suitcases. One of the most important roles of capital ships, beyond just their performance on grid, is that you can fill up the ship maintenance bay with your subcaps and instead of flying those one at a time or disassembling them, having to buy new rigs and putting them back together in the destination.
Yeah. So do you see this like maybe making deployments and going to war with one another easier because you can move more ships more quickly because you have these supers that have twice as much space as they had before to move fleets over?
I don't think the super bay increase is extremely significant for movement of fleets, because normally if you're deploying supercarriers, you're deploying Titans, and they normally had that. They already had the 5 million, as well as with carriers and dreads and faxes all having 1 million. Quite often you'd end up with excess space moving corporations and alliances. There would still be excess space around because you'd still also have to take pods and things like that. So I don't think it's too significant for mobilization of fleets. I think it's going to really just allow more to happen during a fleet fight, especially with battleships, because with 2.5 million, you could only store 5 or 6 of the type of battleship.
I'm curious to what will happen with, well, people basing out of it. I believe in the Chinese version of EVE Online, the carrier and the supercarrier are called Mothership and, well, Super Mothership would be the direct translation. I'd like to see some sort of, I guess, a clown car where a mass of people suddenly come out in, well, ships that were stored inside of a mothership or the supercarrier.
Isn't a bowhead kind of like a clown car?
Yeah, I did that once
It's
for missions.
unique.
It was fun.
Well, one of the changes that, well, hopefully everybody should be able to experience is the overhaul of the the jump clones. I really like how it's pretty now. It looks a lot better than the old one.
I like the old one, honestly, because you don't, without like mousing over stuff, you don't necessarily know what your implants are unless you like name the clones. I think and it takes up like more space than it did before. I kind of liked the old jump page.
I've been using it a bit. I personally like it. It's easy to tell what clone I'm looking at a quick glance, because you can see, oh well, it's that clone, and it spells it out a lot nicer. It's easier to kind of like read what you can do, and it displays a lot more information. I appreciate it, especially I think new players coming in will appreciate it more than pilots that have been doing it for a long, or been playing the game for a long time, because they're used to how it was. But for new players, it kind of explains how the clone works, and it'll help them understand that a lot better.
Maybe I'm just used to what it was, and I'm
Yeah.
it's new. I hate it.
Yeah, if you think about it, EVE Online's UI design is like a hybrid of the old EVE Online with the new. The new would be like the industry interface is like the new UI. It's like the unified, lots of information, lots of things you can do from that one window. Whereas the old looks much more like the spreadsheets of old, right? So your old jump clone looked like inventory. You know, if you're looking for inventory, it had the same kind of window. You drop it down and then you look at the items inside that one location or whatever. So I think, and I hope they keep moving towards the new integrated UI that they started a long time ago, because it's a much better visual experience. And I believe it gets closer to EVE Echoes, which everybody said has a really nice UI. Like they've managed to capture a lot of information in a small space. But right now, EVE is still in that growth, in that weird mixture of both UIs mixed together. Okay. Anything else on that?
One thing I like with the jump clone window is there's a couple of things that I'm not happy with. Typically, if you have 2 implant sets that don't have any odd implants, what I mean is things like the black glass, relic and data implant, they all look the same. You have to mouse over them, whereas previously it would give you the names of the implants. But if you have, say, a amulet set, you can easily tell that away from, say, your training set. But like someone just put in chat, it's quite nice having the actual ID of the clone as well. Kind of gives it a bit more realism into it. So it's not just a pod that you have. You actually have it is a designated your pod, so to speak.
Well, you'd figure that the implants would be in like a drawer in whatever station, because when you jump clone, they melt down the clone and recover the implants. Like they don't store just like a body. So like you'd figure that's what would be on like a label on like the drawer with your implants for when you come back over.
Yeah, it's not just stored in some pile in the corner. It's actually got a designated point.
Okay. So that's the update. Those are the big parts of it. We didn't talk about dynamic bounty system. I feel like it's still a little bit early to talk about that. The ESS was a much more dramatic change in that it prompted massive change in behavior of people roaming all over nullsec. So that's why we talked about that. But next time or later on, we'll talk about the dynamic bounty system to see if that's actually put my ratters off in nullsec or not.
So I do have a couple patch notes that weren't mentioned or
Okay.
may not have been noticed, but the pods got an overhaul. So the way the pods look got changed. Some people haven't noticed that. Some people are very angry about it.
What's the change look like?
They added shaders to it. So lighting actually influences the way your pod looks a lot more. And it's very pronounced in the station. The second thing, which is absolutely awesome for everybody that likes to use Triglavian chips, is the Disintegrator Specialization skill book was removed from the Triglavian LP store and added back into the Abyss where it was before. And then the last one that I want to mention is they added in Red Claw skins, which are available for a handful of ships, one of them being the Garmer, and they are awesome looking. The Phantasm is another ship that BRB was showing off the other day, or yesterday, that has a new Red Claw skin.
They also have the scope skins, right? Those are pretty neat looking too. They have like a translucent blue with a metallic gold combination. By the way, these fireworks that we're getting as login incentives, you're supposed to use those fireworks to get the skins, right? Anyone know about that?
You launch them at the Titans in Jita, because there's Titans for the groups from the various empires, like the Leisure Group and Natura and so on and so forth. And you like launch them at the Titans, and you get like little rewards. I think that's how it works.
Okay, so
Like
we gotta let people know how to do that, because I think people are going to miss out on skins if they don't. But where are those Titans in location to Jita? They're
You get like an objective every day that tells you where to go.
Where do you find that objective? Is it in the agency or something?
No, so it's in trading spaces. So if you look at the top right of your client, there's like the search, or top left, search New Eden, system info, route, and there's a daily campaign. It's in the daily campaign.
Okay, thanks. I'm glad we cleared that up so people don't miss out on those rewards. Okay, so let's get to, sorry, my throat is bothering me. Let's get to some of the war news that's going on, and that's why we have our guest Fire here. Tell us about what happened with Requiem Eternal, and let's catch us up on what happened there.
Well, as everyone knows, we had a former Sky Team member decide to go rogue and disband the Alliance after stealing assets. Thankfully for us, he wasn't that great at that and managed to get our moon goo, which he was in charge of, so he knew where it all was. And he got the liquid ISK we had in our wallet, as well as the Drone Walker Memorial Station. Kind of a bit bummed about that, because we had wanted to keep that up to memorialize Drone Walkers as an Alliance and what they had done. But
right.
The in-game memorial, they can't touch that, so that's still there.
The plaque that goes near these stations that were built.
Yeah, the ones that are supposed to have a history of the stations, but that never got added in.
Well, yeah, and I think there was a limited amount of those. Those were the original stations that were put
Correct.
out.
Those were the original NPC stations that could be captured. I think they were called the Amency stations or something.
Yeah, actually. Right. Those are the ones that CCP put in place out there. And then players built additional ones. And all those together got converted to faction fortizars. But the ones that were put in by CCP have a special plaque that talks about
yeah,
their
they're
origin.
Supposed to add a history of that station and who owned it. But that never actually materialized.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. All right. So how much did he make off with, just because we're obsessed with quantities?
He made off with about, I'd say, 70 billion ISK liquid, and then about 400 billion ISK worth of moon goo. And the faction fortizar, the price is variable anywhere from 50 billion to 100 billion.
Okay, so a pretty good payday. How bad does that set you back?
Not too badly. That was about 2 to 3 months worth of moon goo stored up. And the whole reason our wallet was low is we're building up a cap cache. He only got one part of the shipment to said cap cache. Everything else is with our military director in the FC Corporation to be handed out when needed.
Now, you were an alliance that actually had a lot of bridges for legacy, and you had a lot of territory, at least 37, 50 systems, right? Like 30 to 50.
We had a solid amount of territory.
Yeah,
Most of the jump bridges weren't coalition dictated or requested. They were there for our own convenience because we had the space, we wanted to utilize the space.
Oh, so that was your infrastructure that you built for yourselves.
Correct.
Okay, but other legacy alliances could use it.
Correct.
Okay, so he takes the money. Did he drop your SOV as well?
Yep, he dropped our SOV. Thankfully, Brave, Test, Rosita Regnum, they all managed within 4 hours to secure every single iHub that we had dropped, with I think the exception of the ones in Delve.
How many did you have in Delve?
I think we had 2, 3 in Delve and Aquarius.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that. So basically it was, and how fast did they, because I heard it was like 4 hours that they took back pretty much all the iHub space.
Correct. Within 4 hours, everything was done. And we already had TCUs on the way. We already had iHubs coming in. Everyone from Fraternity, Test, everybody went out of their way to help us get those iHubs down.
Yeah, we've seen this before. During the Fountain War, Nulli Segunda had a rogue director, part of Snuff, actually, and that disbanded 2 out of the 3 alliances, right? Because normally you have like a PvP alliance, and then you have a training alliance that is for the people who want to join, but they're not quite there yet. And then you have a renter alliance that are people that don't really want to participate. They just want to like farm the land. So they dropped the training alliance, and the renter alliance, Nulli Segunda alliance, couldn't be dropped. And then that guy ran off. And this was in the middle of Fountain War. But what was interesting about it, because these betrayals happen quite often, was that N3 retook that space, at least the stations, within 48 hours, which is back in Dominion SOV was really fast. And this looks like that as well. You guys really recovered. You're like a cat falling out of a tree and landing on its feet, really. You recovered quickly.
Yeah, we've already recovered all of our systems in Impasse, and I believe we have them all in Tenny. Oh, we're waiting on a few in Tenny to get self-destructed.
Tenerifus.
Within 24 hours, we basically had everything reset SOV-wise.
Yeah, that's incredibly elastic management there. But what's become of Requiem Eternal then?
Well, the Alliance itself and the legacy corporations that were still in it, that was disbanded. We're still trying to get a hold of some of the players that have since quit. That obviously is rather difficult. But other than that, we've already put everybody into Eternal Requiem. We have every single corp, with the exception of one that was on its way out, back in the Alliance.
So, okay, so you got everybody back. some people have left. You can't contact them. There was a corp that was leaving anyway to Brave, I understand, and that's the corp.
Pinata, and that is the corp where the Sky Team member came from.
Where the traitor, we'll call him for purposes of understanding, came from. Okay, so he was a traitor on his way out anyway because his corp was going over to Brave.
Correct.
There's some talk. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. This guy was never like some top level undercover. This guy was just a traitor, somebody who stabbed somebody in the back when he got the opportunity. He was never somebody who infiltrated their way in. They were never loyal to the group they were with originally. This
was strictly a crime of opportunity. He was upset by some policy choices and decided to take it out on me and by extension the Alliance as a whole.
So not a deep, what do you call it? Deep cover.
It wasn't a long con by any means.
Long con.
No, this wasn't a Donnie Brasco. This was just some, backstabber, betrayer, defector.
Yeah.
The way that it turned out reminded me a lot of what happened with Care Factor this past June, where it was the person who did it had been talking to the leaders, some leadership in the Wrecking Crew Coalition, but when it happened, it even caught them off guard with how spur of the moment it was.
Yeah, Care Factor is pretty sudden.
So the idea then, this wasn't a long con. It wasn't a deep operative. How does the Imperium get involved with this? Because we just heard them yesterday talk about how they were involved.
Honestly, from everything we've seen, they had no involvement except offering him a spot after he did the deed. He might have approached them a few days prior. But if they were actually involved, they would have coached him on how to have all of his jump clones in the space to take all the citadels instead of just one. They mentioned yesterday that the whole reason he wasn't able to take more of the stations was because of one of our other Sky Team members, Hyperion. But the logs and the timelines don't add up. He had 30 minutes of free time before Hyperion even logged on to start flipping everything he could get his hands on, and he didn't. He took the station, disbanded the Alliance, and that was it.
So he could have done more damage.
He could have gotten several trillion-isk worth of citadels with his access, yes.
Oh.
So could you explain what Sky Team means for people whose Alliance doesn't use that term?
So Sky Team is what we call our upper management team. It's typically about 4 to 5 high-end directors who have fairly extensive access. They do things like the head diplomatic mission, my second in command, being the military director, etc.
It's your core guys, basically.
Yeah.
All right. Very interesting. Anything else you want to say about this? Like, what's the future for your new formation, your new alliance?
We intend to do everything much the same as we did prior. We're probably going to go shoot goons a bit harder just because they gave him refuge. And let's be frank, anybody who harbors a traitor deserves to be shot at. But in the long term, we still have our exact same plans in place. They delayed maybe our cap cash by a few months. That's about it.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck. Now, stick around with us as we're going to actually move on to another CEO. I'll bring him in now. We'll talk about, and this CEO is from ChemiKals Corporation, which recently left Goonswarm. So let's say hello to Eves. How are you doing, Eves? Oh, I'll let him get situated here.
Hello.
Eves, can you hear me? Hi,
Yeah, I
there
can
you
hear you
are.
perfectly fine.
Okay, good. I dragged you right in. Let's talk about ChemiKals and your situation, your story. What's going on with your corporation?
So basically, there's a lot of rumors going around that we left due to bad blood or anything like that from the Imperium, and it's just not true. It was at a point where I'd stopped playing well before the war even started. And it just got to a point where I was looking at my bank statements and I realized that I still had this subscription going out for EVE Online, and I was either a case of cancel the subscription and let everything go dormant or come back and play. But my whole thing of wanting to play was I didn't want to do the nullsec stuff. The 14-hour tie-dye fights just didn't appeal to me. It was just something that I wasn't prepared to pay my subscription to play the game with. So I was a wormholer, born and bred. Spent 7 years in wormhole space before taking a little break and then coming back and giving nullsec a try. So I decided it was time that myself was going to go back to wormhole space, but I wasn't just going to leave the corporation itself because it's something that I've had since 2011. And I wasn't prepared to give away like 9 years of my corporation. So I basically said to people, look, I am going to do this. If you want to come along, you are more than welcome to. If not, then I will find you new places within the Imperium before we leave.
Oh, that's a nice way to go out.
Well, I sat and I had a meeting with my entire corporation. I basically said, look, I have no flair to play the game in nullsec. I have no flair to want to undock. And that had been pretty evident that over the past, 8 months, I'd hardly been online. I used to be quite an active FC for my corporation, and I even did a few for the Imperium as well. I just had no desire to do that anymore because it just wasn't something that I was interested in. So when I eventually did speak with everyone, I said, look, I am prepared to find you new spots within the Imperium before I go. So that's exactly what I did. I approached 4 or 5 different corporations within the Alliance and said, look, these are my plans. Quite a few of my guys are wanting to stay. Are you prepared to take them? It all boiled down to the loyalty that they'd shown me over the past couple of years. They deserved that loyalty from me to find them new homes and relieve the stress of that whole process.
Yeah, I think it's also cool that you figure out what makes you happy and you don't stay in a bad situation because you feel tied to it. Like if you look at Arcia here or Hateless or even Rich, like none of them play nullsec, right? Right, you guys?
Yeah, not block level anyway. There's a lot of Eve outside the blocks.
Yeah, there's the high sec is an entirely different way of life that is not understood by a lot of people that live in nullsec.
As is low sec.
Yep, it's a different game. And low sec and high sec and null sec, they're 3 separate rule sets.
And wormholes.
And wormholes. So there's 4 separate rule sets.
And Pockman.
Okay, okay. So it's a different rule set. It creates a different environment. The meta, how you function, how you operate is different in the different regions of space. But there's profit to be made in every region of space. There's content to be had in every region of space. It's just the rule set is different.
Yeah, the commitments are different too, I imagine.
Absolutely, commitments are completely different. And one of the main factors that made me decide to want to go back to high sec, not to high sec, to wormhole space, what the hell am I saying, was the group that I originally grew up playing EVE with for like 7 years in wormhole space became active again with a lot of its original members. And just some of the it just brought back some of the memories of being sat in a pause playing Dreadnought bowling to see who could send their Dreadnought the furthest on a Friday night whilst everybody's completely drunk. It was just that type of thing, and I wanted to go back to doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What kind of wormhole are you going to move into once you, get set up?
We are looking at a class 5 at the moment. It is still up in debate as to what we're wanting to do, but if it was going to be a class 5, it would definitely have to be a Wolf-Rayet. Just armor stuff. I've always loved armor tanking fights. The good old, I'm going to sit in your face and shoot you with blasters, always appealed to me.
Wolf-Rayets are very, very lucrative. Looking to make a lot of ISK.
Well, no, the ISK generation isn't something that bothers me. I spent 2 years in Delve, so yes, I have got a healthy wallet balance.
You're flush.
To be honest, I never really ratted in Delve. I used other methods of ISK generation that I don't really think are appropriate for this type of conversation. But it's more of a case of I want to go back to a lot more of the smaller gang stuff, the taking on outnumbered fights through wormhole space, the whole, so we can't jump that wormhole twice because we're now... No, Retro, no. It is not to do with taxes. I didn't make money off all your taxes, you cheeky little twat. But yeah, it's the case of it is a completely different play set in wormhole space.
Especially since you can, what I like about wormhole space is that you can be in one spot and then you pop up in another spot. Using wormholes as PvP bridges to invade null. You could attack Esoterra and then you can pop back up in Fountain and then you can pop back up in Veil of the Bubbles. And are you looking to do a lot of PvP now that you're not going to have the blues in the Imperium and being able to hit basically everybody in nullsec, and you can pop around like that with the wormholes?
That's exactly what we're hoping to do. It is exactly what we are hoping to do.
Nullsec is a lot different when you can shoot literally everybody there.
Yes, absolutely. A few of my guys that are kind of in limbo at the moment whilst we're waiting to sort out our wormhole are actually taking advantage of the ESS at the moment. So I'm sitting in comms listening to them do that, and it is quite funny because they're quite ecstatic.
Well, you picked a hell of a time to get into wormholes because Inner Hell just reconstituted. They're coming back. HK, I think, will also ally with them, and they're going to go to war with wormhole groups.
Yeah,
So
I'd
you'll have
heard
your
that
hands full.
rumor too, but I asked Laura Secco about it yesterday, and he said that he doesn't want to do it.
Really?
He still doesn't think that with the resist and fax changes, that kind of big wormhole fight is something he's interested in. That's what he told me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll see what happens. Watch that space. And now ChemiKals will be in there as well. There's one other aspect to your corporation, by the way, that is interesting, and that is you had an FC, right? Is it Joey Zahn or something?
Yeah, Joey Zam. Good old Joey Zam. Yeah, we actually picked him up from Legacy before we joined Goonswarm. Basically, is my corporation itself. I revived it about three and a half years ago. I think it was about that time. And basically said, right, I'm going to give the nullsec thing a try. We bounced around a few really bad alliances, kind of absorbing their decent players from each of those alliances when they collapsed because leadership problems or anything like that. And people just liked my leadership style. So they kind of tagged along with us. And Joey was one of the ones that we picked up from Catch. So when we left Legacy and moved to Goonswarm, this was while Legacy and Imperium were blue to each other. So the transition across was fairly simple, actually. Yeah, and Joey has been one of my most valued players, one of my most valued pilots, and a really good friend of mine, and an absolute fantastic FC. He really was. And when I announced that we were obviously going off to wormhole space, he originally was going to come with us, but I think maybe he's sat down and had a think about what he wants to do with the game, and wormhole space just wasn't for him. When he approached me and said that he was going to go to join Pits and the other FCs that he was fairly good friends with, I was like, is that really a good time to do it now, Joey? But at the end of the day, he pays to play his game, and I was never going to tell him how to play it, because that's just nothing that I ever did to any of my corp members. And a few times we'd had to, let's say, chastise him over dropping caps on literally anything and everything that had a warp drive, should we say? Yeah. So, and he's all about the dropping of cap stuff, and the whole thing about where Matani had called him a spy, that actually really upset him. It really upset him, which is why I think he's dropping caps so aggressively on Delve now.
Yeah, he was part of a group that picked off a wyvern. The wyvern was basically invited to a fleet and pulled off. That happens. That happened to AOM the other day as well, right?
I'll hold my hands up. I actually had that done to me in 1DQ a while back. So I can see how devastating it can be, and it's an absolutely fantastic tactic, and it works. If people aren't paying attention to what fleets they're accepting, then yeah, it works.
So I like your CEO style too. I can see why people stick with you. And Joey told you that he was going to do it. Seems like everything was above board, but he wasn't a spy, was he?
No, absolutely not. I would stake my entire reputation as being an honest CEO, a transparent CEO. You can ask any of my members; they'll all, well, majority of them will agree with me. Some are just twats and they'll do it. They'll disagree for the sake of it. But no, I 100% believe Joey was not a spy.
Okay. All right, cool. So he's doing his thing in Sinners Corp in NC. And now he's fighting against the Imperium. You're doing your thing, moving on to wormholes to try to find a better lifestyle, game style for you guys.
Well, yeah,
that's where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I even approached Goonswarm leadership and said, look, these are my intentions, I don't want it to seem as though we're abandoning, although that's what it does look like. It purely is down to the fact that this is my baby corp. I've had it for 9 years. Anybody that wants to stay, I've arranged for them to stay. But I'm going to do something different.
Okay, that's great. And I'm glad you're so communicative and open about that. I just think that's a good mark of a good leader.
Yeah, what you're saying sounded a lot like what happened a month and a half ago with Waffles leaving Pandemic Horde. The leadership had some changing life circumstances, like the CEO Reza had a baby at the end of September and wanted to try something different, so they left Horde on friendly terms and made arrangements for those of us who wanted to stay in Horde, like me, to go to different corporations. And
yeah, like I think that Eve is so big and there's so many things to do. If you're not having fun where you are, it's not a bad idea to try something else. Just leave on good terms and you can come back, right? Like I think a lot of people get stuck in like one area of the game, and then after a while it becomes stale or changes, and they don't like how it changes, and they just stay there and then they leave instead of trying some of the other stuff, instead of trying wormholes or trying low sec or trying high sec or trying POCVEN or whatever. And I think it's good to make a move when you feel like what you're doing isn't maybe what you want to do.
Yeah, one of the main things that stopped me from doing it a lot sooner was the thought of having to extract assets, not just mine, but the corporation assets, people's assets and stuff like that. But it got to a point where I was like, you know what, it's time I do this. And yeah, I hit asset safety on everything that I and the corporation owned. So yeah, I'm going to have fun getting that out.
I do not envy you that.
Well, it just so happens that I was going through asset safety stuff today and found 40 billion ISK worth of minerals, and I'm like, fuck, how the hell am I going to move that?
Hey, I can legitimately say we do not have that problem right now.
Well,
Somebody did that for you.
Oh, you just had a pitch.
do you want to buy some minerals from me? I've got some spare.
After having dealt with a problem similar to that many times, I am quite glad I just have billions in asset safety, and I have the mentality of eventually I'll get round to dealing with it.
Yeah, don't let it hold you down. All right, cool. Well, it's nice to meet you, Eves. Stick around. We're going to move to the last portion of the show. This is something that came up recently. We've asked our mining expert, Astreo, to hang out with us. He's from Ushrakan. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there was some discussion about mining. Astreo, can you tell us what that discussion was about and your view on it?
Yes. So the discussion that I've been seeing mostly is due to the asteroid belts kind of getting to the point to where in certain regions of space that they're just broken and it's non-usable in certain areas, and that if something isn't done, a lot of these people who live in those areas are going to either have to move or they're not going to be able to, of course, live in that space.
Yeah. So that's what was posed. I think it was actually on Reddit, and I'm not sure, but I've heard it was posted by Cable. So he made some calculations there. What do you think of the calculations, or what do you think of that line of logic?
I mean, I think that yes, it is true in certain regions to where there's determining on where you live, there's nothing that you can really do to increase the index in that area, and there's also no ore that you can mine. Using Providence as an example, a lot of those systems in that region don't fit the requirements that you would be able to get a lot of the main a lot of the basic ores that you kind of need to not only sustain yourself in that area, but also increase your productivity in the nullsec anoms. And since they don't, get to that point, they're not going to be able to, of course, live there. So they kind of got to either move somewhere else or try something else. But ultimately, with the removal of those ores that they needed, it did kind of break a lot of mechanics.
Yeah, for some systems, there isn't even enough ore in the belts to raise the industry index without dropping athnors to mine moons.
Yes, because either the belts will have like 2 belts in them, and they wouldn't even have half of what they had before, or in the case of nullsec systems, it's been gutted so much that between the regular asteroid belts and the nullsec anoms, you really don't have the productivity or the workload to actually increase those systems.
Well, how do you think that'll shape the game? Like, what kinds of trends are going to come out of that situation?
If something isn't done, I mean, I see a lot of people either just moving to other regions, or you might see a lot of people just set up their own moon mining harvesting, which I'm hoping that's the case, but how much of that would be worth it, on the long end, where you could just, get the same amount somewhere else while not actually having to invest anything. So it's really going to be determined on how far it is, how much work you're wanting to put in, and, how important is that space.
Yeah. All right. Well, how is mining going for you now these days? With these changes, have you been affected at all?
From a high sec, low sec standpoint, yes. I feel like a lot of the ore that I used to mine has, at least for using Velspar Scorodite as an example, the cost or the amount of how much you would normally sell them at per unit has went down, but the demand has kind of went up, so it is kind of giving you a little bit more work. And from a high sec miner perspective, I don't really feel like these changes really hurt us. I think it's more of a buff because you're only going to be able to get these ores at a high sec now, so that kind of gives you a lot more customers to sell with. From a low sec standpoint, I also feel like it's great because now I'm kind of getting in a routine to also pull a lot of that ore out of low-sec, and I even noticed that you're also catching a lot of these crocite anoms in low-sec. That also makes it worthwhile. But overall, yeah, I don't think these changes really affected miners, more or less just builders.
I would say it affected miners in nullsec pretty significantly, though.
Yeah.
Simply because we have systems with literally nothing to mine. No anoms, no ore in any belt, nothing. And it's the norm, and finding a system with stuff to mine is the rarity.
Yeah, I've had to do that a couple of times, and a cheap way I found was put down an ethanol on a random moon and just pull up a big belt, because that's the only real way you could get the anoms to start spawning. Because with the NPC mining fleets, especially in nullsec, quite often you'll find a lot of the belts have been stripped, which makes it very difficult to actually get the index started in general. So that's the only real way I found of securing an index in the system with very bad ore.
But yeah, what I found is that, in my experience, the nullsecers are upset with the ore changes to their space, because I think nullsec was nerfed a lot. I think the nullsec mining was nerfed a lot. I think that a lot of low-secers I've talked to have been really, really happy with what has happened as far as low-sec mining goes. And I think high-secers are about even, because, like you said, it's more customers for maybe a little less per unit.
And one thing is, well, of course, it would be Cable who brings this up in his article about the problems with the ore changes, but this takes away the one main way you find an NPC Sotio. Because when one of them shows up in a system, you initially find them by checking the belts for NPC mining operations, I believe. And of course, Cable is the NPC Sotio guy, so of course he'd bring that up.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
He also brought a very stark reality, and that is we have an entire region, Providence. All of it is just devoid of ore. It's mind blowing that there's just no mining that to be done in this entire region of Eve now. It's just devoid of any kind of mineral, apart from I'm guessing some sort of rare anomaly that spawns every now and then. But there's just no guaranteed ore now.
Impasse is the same way.
Yeah, all the systems that don't have great TrueSec are like that, like Cloud Ring or whatever, and all those regions that are across the board not very much good TrueSec.
So there's bad nullsec again, right?
I feel like nullsec mining needed a nerf, but I don't think that it should completely obsolete regions. I think something should be done to address that.
Well, and they've said they would. This is the low point for mining in nullsec. There will be incentives coming. We don't know what form they'll take. If ESS is any indication of the kind of systems they want to build, we assume that the last phase of the scarcity will be dynamic systems that will put ore back into areas where it's been taken out in a dynamic way, which means it can't be depended on constantly. So you'll have to move around or do some things in order to get the ore that you used to get for just sitting there.
I have noticed that in the exotic metal mineral storm, a lot of miners when it's in a good spot. So I think people are taking advantage of that storm. We went through it yesterday, and there was just a page and a half of mining barges on DC. It's so many procures that my PvP gang was like, I don't want to mess with that. Look at all those procures. Right.
Yeah. Is it tanky exhumers?
Yeah. And they had a falcon on these scans, so it's
procurers are scary.
Yeah. So it's a bunch of procurers and a falcon. It's get me out of here.
Yeah, procurers are the one mining ship that can be made into a decent PvP ship.
Yeah, I can say for any moon mining ops for my corporation, our procurers are not mining fit. They are damage fit. So they have a damage control and a drone damage amp. And if you have 10 of them on grid, they can clear battleships relatively quickly.
Never not fit a scram on a procurer. Like,
Yeah.
One of these days, I'll have to introduce you guys to Hyperion and his battle proc battalion.
once we yeeted and we landed in horde space, and we had a fight with not battle procurers, but like 40 battle coveters with porpoises as logi. And it was one of the most nuts things I had ever. They were camping a bubble. They were camping a bubble. It was one of the most nuts things I had ever seen. It was so fun.
Yeah, some of the most fun I've had with filament roams was, well, it was actually one with my previous corp and my current corp in battle procures with porpoise and orcas for Lynx and Logi. So the first filament, we landed in horde space, which we're horde. But we rescued a Rorqual that got tackled, and then we ended up on the hostile space the next one and got a few kills and died. It was a lot of fun. But our filament gang just showed up in a bunch of mining ships and rescued a friendly Rorqual. That's the main thing I remember from that.
Yeah,
All right.
One of
Go ahead, Tully.
the story I've got from filamenting and yeeting orcas was for one of our corp members' birthdays. We decided we'll do just that. We had an orca and we had a bunch of minings, and we filamented into random space, but we couldn't get any content. So we started mining a random R64 moon that popped.
Yeah. Estrella?
Yeah, another thing that I wanted to add in that was kind of a little bit off topic but related to mining before we switch gears is the the growing kind of wealth of high sectors in general. Using the region of Himitar as an example, and I kind of brought it up with you, Metarol. You're seeing a lot of people start to become wealthy enough to have multiple alts, and kind of in the region or the area where I live in, there's 2 low sec systems, and then there's like 4 main high sec systems that a lot of people mine that's next to RINs. Before the changes or a month after the changes, you didn't really see a lot of people. And normally, with my group or my clique that we run with, we didn't have enough people to usually we didn't have enough people to clear, 2 systems that had about 16 belts each. But what I've started to notice is not only in those 4 systems, so that would be a system called Osaka, a system called Abudan, also a system which is next to Himitar called Jark, that's in the Angel region, and then Damelin and Alakar. You're seeing that every belt before downtime is gone. And you're also noticing a lot of people are moving into other regions. So what I'm kind of just getting at is you're seeing a lot of people mining, and what that's kind of creating is more of a wealth for a lot of those people who are getting out there. And one interesting thing that might eventually happen is, what do you see when there's not enough belts to sustain people who were wanting to continuously grow and continue to increase their wealth? And what will that kind of that type of conflict between everybody who's kind of close together create? My perspective on it is, I feel like a lot of people will start to kind of combine themselves into, this is going to be a weird thing to say, but like super high sec mining coalitions, to where, this group will say, hey, don't mine here, we'll war deck you, because, with the moon mining changes and the war deck changes, if you put a structure in space, you can technically be war decked. And then you'll also see like maybe mercs getting involved and other stuff like that. And I kind of want to hear y'all's perspective on it, or y'all's opinions on it. Do y'all feel like, high sectors will start to see that happen, or do you think a lot of people will just move somewhere else?
So another thing I wanted to mention, like you said, is true that there seems to be a lot more miners in that area, because I'm an Electus Matari, so I'm in that area a lot too. I've also noted a lot more gankers in that area. Like a Budbon has that ice belt, and there's like always criminals in local flashy from killing somebody with like catalysts. And so like there's more mining, there's more ganking, there's more anti-ganking. And high sec is a lot more lively than it's been sometimes.
Well, it's funny that you brought up because the main group that are ganking in that area is a corp or alliance called Mineral Malicious Hounds or something like that.
Malicious
And
mineral.
and they're allied with Code. So now you're seeing like this quote unquote mining alliance who were allied with a ganking alliance, killing all the miners in lowsec in what you say Abudan, clearing them out of the ice belts and closing that whole system off to just them.
Yeah, it's literally as you say. They're starting to gank the other miners to keep their space. So, like, it's definitely driving conflict.
And you would never expect that in high sec, which is just so weird to even imagine. Well, I never would imagine that.
This is Eve. Of course, people would make arrangements to clear out the competition.
Shooting people is the easiest way to get them to stop doing something you want them to stop doing.
Or just bumping them.
So what about ice mining, Sully?
So, yeah, a lot of people didn't notice that in the patch notes because it was only a single line, but they did actually do a change to the ice belts spawn rate. I was trying to find a post there for CCP Aurora where she went into a little bit of detail, but it was noted after the first couple of weeks, ice prices increasing as well as the isotopes and things like that. But systems that had ice belts previously didn't have ice belts. One of the systems that I've regularly used, it took about 3 weeks for an ice belt to actually spawn. So what it seems like is rather than having designated systems with an ice belt, there's now a pool of available ice belts, and they get assigned out to a system that is capable of having one. So you may notice that some systems don't have any ice belts spawning for a while, whereas others have one every week and every single day. So there has been a nice change on that side, which means that people can't just wait the 4 hours for an ice belt to spawn and then go straight back out. They might have to relocate to go and find it.
Yeah.
Also, some of the ice belts that were widely mined in high sec got yeeted to Bachman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a handful.
Oh, because they were part of that system to begin with.
Yeah, Angry Money. Archie was a low sec ice belt, so there were a few of them.
Interesting. Yeah, the ice belts have caused prices for ice derivatives or whatever materials to go up quite a bit. So, and that relates to fuel and actually jump travel. So we'll see either constriction in travel or less structures in space, which may also coincide with the new core system that you have to have in a structure as far as making it expensive and risky. So it's going to be interesting to see what these pressures do to the amount of existing structures that are out there, the amount of travel that happens in EVE Online, and, you know, and possibly, but probably not, entosising as well, because I believe Stront is used for a lot of things, including entosising. Okay. Now the war report. We buried the lead here today because we had other stuff that we wanted to get to. We want to talk about all of EVE Online, but we definitely need to talk about the war. A Keepstar went down in Aquarius in 49U. You tell us about that, Sully?
Yeah, so this started being attacked by Pappy forces. Initially, it was only Test Alliance Titans doing the first initial reinforces. They anchored a Sinojammer present in system, so they had safety from people being able to open a Sinosauр field on top of them. And with that, they were able to use capitals with relative safety, because for any dreadnoughts to engage close range, they'd have to need a Sino or jump through the Stargate, which was defended. So the first 2 timers went down with relatively no issues. And obviously the final timer, there was 2,000 pilots in system from Pappy side. I believe there was 230 Titans and 165 Supercarriers.
Yeah.
All on the kill mail. There was a few capitals that did get doomsdayed, a couple from XIX especially, who one of them, I believe, mistakenly walked down to the Keepstar, and obviously was suddenly doomsdayed. And I believe the fax that went to try and save him was doomsdayed on the next cycle. So there are a couple of losses there, but ultimately
I think Carneros was the Doomsday structure gunner.
Yeah, he was one of the only Imperium names that I saw in local, and he said he was gunning it, so that would make sense.
Yeah, he's the leader of Bastion, also part of TIS.
Yeah, you got to have the enjoyment fun there. And it's worth noting as well, for the final timer, there was in fact 3 anchored Sinusoid jammers. However, one was online. 2 of them were belonging to Test Alliance, and one of them was Fraternity as well. So they were able to ensure that if one Sino jammer was destroyed, the other one could quickly be switched on.
Okay, real quick, we're going to lose fight. Before you leave, are you familiar with Esoteria and the situation going on there?
I'm fairly familiar with it. There are certain things I can't say due to OPSEC reasons, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But is there anything in particular you would like to ask?
Well, we've heard Initiative is headed to Esoteria to put more pressure on the area. Can you tell us what's going on there?
They, as far as we're aware, at least as far as I'm aware, I've been, of course, a bit busy the last few days.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to take advantage of the Red Alliance split and try and put more pressure to take Test further away from Delve.
Okay, yeah. All right, we know you have to run. Thanks for sticking around, Fight. We'll see you later. It's good to meet you.
No problem. It's great being here.
Have a good one.
All right, so that's the other bit of story. If you guys know anything about it, let's talk about it. Initiative headed over to Esoteria to kind of add on to the amount of damage that's been happening by both Revica and Bastion Alliance.
Yeah, Revica is a mercenary corporation, which most of them are former members of Black Legion, and they had previously been on contract to attack Delve. So I wonder if they'll be working with Elo for this, since most of them are former Black Legion.
Well, interesting question. I haven't heard of Elo as far as being active outside of the Delve zone or the Aquarius Delve, but yeah, it could be.
Yeah, so the main thing is, well, it was officially announced yesterday that the initiative is deploying to put pressure on Esoteria, which I think is a good way for them to do things. And I think this is probably, for what they're doing, the best thing that they could be doing, the best kind of thing that they could be doing, putting pressure away from home in the other guy's home. So it'll be interesting to see how that works.
It's a very good tactic to try and cause damage and disrupt your enemy. Obviously, with most of their forces deployed in Quirius, they can't exactly withdraw easily, especially with capitals. It's only what's left at home that's really they have to worry about. But it really does cause a huge headache for the residents of Esoteria, because they're unable to earn ISK safely. They're just going to start to get a bit more of a struggle with Initiative causing some, and Bastion as well, causing havoc in their homeland. So,
right. So in the backfield, do you have Army of Mango that's going to protect part of Esoteria, or are they just protecting the region that they're in?
I'm not too sure on their internal strategies, but I know with Fraternity obviously not agreeing with Army Mangoes, there was a large amount of cloaky campaign that's going on there from a group called the Akina Mountain family, who are have been at least a fraternity associate in the past, but they are also suffering just because of the amount of damage that's going on in their home regions. Even today, we've seen an Army of Mangoes Nyx was killed during a joint op, it would seem. So there is still a lot of damage going on. I'm not sure if there's going to be any specific deployment or any specific group that's going to come back to try and help defend the home space, but we'll have to see how these next couple of weeks pan out.
Yeah, because they're pledged to help defend the integrity of legacy space. I'm not sure if that extends to all of it or if it's a couple of regions that they are near. So we'll see what they do. And I believe that's the second Nyx that was killed from AOM, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. Yeah, they have. I think they've lost at this point 4 or 5 supercarriers in their home space.
Sure.
They have lost a few.
Yeah. All right. So that's the war report. Damage being done in Esoteria. Initiative's going to capitalize on that. Test has to worry. They're in Delve, fighting it out with the Imperium that is defending Delve. They're going back and forth on iHubs. They did manage to take down Aquarius Keepstar. It went undefended. I guess they couldn't form a fleet because some real life stuff had happened, but nevertheless, it was only defended by Carneros, who managed to blast a few carriers. Good job. And there are, again, Aquarius is what would be considered by some or has been described as a floodplain, not really necessary space. That Keepstar was important at a certain point when it was protecting a bridge system in from Stain, I believe. So we're past that point in the war, so that no longer is a strategic objective. And that Keepstar was kind of doomed from, once that system fell, which was a few weeks ago. But now the war really is in Delve, and that's where a lot of the heat is, except this new front that's opening up in Esoteria and is being kept open. And now they're going to try to capitalize on it. We'll see what Test does with their allies, including AOM. A couple final notes. MSN was a Chinese alliance merged into Triple V, which is another Chinese alliance. How many months ago was that? Sorry, weeks ago.
I believe that they merged sometime in July, so it would be about 4 months ago.
It was a while ago. It was the summer. Yeah, so MSN are no longer. Go ahead.
Yeah, even back in December and January, they were close enough that from my perspective as an outsider whose alliance was allied with them, they were functionally almost the same alliance, joining fleets to forming up the same fleets and doing all their stuff together. So I'm not surprised that they had a merger. I just don't really. The language barrier keeps me from getting in full read of the Chinese community in EVE.
I remembered that several of Stars of the Northern Moon, MSN's primarily PvP-focused corps, they left for Ranger Regiment, and I saw that and I thought it was interesting, but I never really realised the ramifications of this in the future. And later I would find that, MSN hasn't been active at all. Their biggest corps hasn't done anything in over a month.
Yeah. All right. A couple more notes. The fraternity will update us later. They moved up north. They're involved in the we'll call it World War B2, since that's one of the names for it that they would use. But they also have some spare capitals, not only to defend their ratters in their Oasa area, but enough to really project some power into the north. So they went up to, I believe it was Venal, and they look to be targeting Trigger Happy. So we'll see what happens up there. Look out for another front there.
To my knowledge, there's some northern groups, Trigger Happy, the former Dark Side, possibly, and other venal residents that have been causing some skirmish issues and snagging a few of Fraternity's assets. So, this is a protectorate to pacify the north.
Yeah. Here
Trigger Happy and a few of the other venal groups have been harassing drone regions residents. Like, my corporation owns a couple of moons in venal, and they'd been bashed a lot by Trigger Happy. When I was with Waffles, other venal residents had been bashing the Waffles moons up there, but it was a lot of the same kind of stuff. And then Trigger Happy has been going into drone regions and harassing the locals there, such as No Value. I believe they're a Russian alliance. They've not really joined the war very much, but they're part of the broader PanFam community, and they end up fighting Trigger Happy a lot.
Yeah, well, it's going to heat up, so we'll keep an eye on that too. There's, lots of combat all over the place, and now including with the SS, really in small micro areas as well. So that's Fraternity moving up into the north. Also, Inner Hell has reconstituted. We brought that up earlier, and apparently they've re-anchored their Keepstar.
They've just brought down a Rainbow Knights Fortizar, which Rainbow Knights would be a alt corporation for Laserhawks.
Oh, that's interesting. That's their old ally, isn't it?
Well, it's people that they've worked with in the past. And that fell quite recently, actually. It fell just under an hour ago.
Oh, that's very recent. Well, keep our eye on that. Inner Hell back in wormholes.
I hope to see what Alex Dramalef and
Tori?
No, she had a different name.
Oh, it's Tori Shepard is one, and then she has an alt name, yeah. But I don't know what it is. They are the leaders of Inner Hell.
Cara Corbre.
Oh, yeah. All right, good, Rich. Thanks for bringing all that good information. Arcia, it's always good to see you having fun with ESSs. And Sully, I'd like to say thanks to all the guys off screen. Estrellas, Eves is still here with us. Thank you, him. And Fight had to take off a little bit earlier.
And Hateless.
And of course, Hateless. Yeah, he had some technical problems, so he had to jump out. But thank all you guys for bringing such great information. And thank you for watching Talking in Stations. We're here every day in our Discord, so make sure you join that. And we have a daily news show. One announcement is that we actually are translating our daily show, which we do. It takes about a half hour every day, talk about news and EVE Online, to written form. So you can find it on our website at talkinginstations.com. Or if you want, you can have it mailed to you in-game or in real life. So we have a mailing list that you can join. You can find that on talkinginstations.com as well if you want real emails every day. Or if you want to get your newspaper in the game, you want to apply to the mail list called TIS News. And we also have a TIS public channel. If you want to hang out with us, that's where we're going to start hanging out in-game as well. So we're bringing Talking in Stations into EVE Online. We'll be in the game hanging out, as well as sending our news directly to your doorstep. The funniest thing happened. I sent out already 2 episodes, and this guy sent me like $4.99 ISK. Like he was paying for the paper. Here's my few cents. So thanks for the nickel. Appreciate it. And
$4.99 ISK is enough to feed several families for like their lifetime.
Is that right?
Yeah, like one ISK is a lot of money for a baseliner, for like a normal person in the EVE universe. It's like months and months and months of just like maybe like months of
I read something about that a long time, like a little while ago, and basically something like 1 ISK is the equivalent of like a year's salary for some people that just live on the planet.
Yeah, especially on different planets would have different kinds of costs of living and different levels of what their currency translates into ISK-wise. But in general, yeah, that's entirely true. I mean, think about it. You're buying super advanced spaceships for this type of currency, which is basically only used internationally in space.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's 1 ISK is can probably feed 1,000 families in Minmatar Republic.
Yikes.
Well, even there, like the planets like Pator would have like a super high standard of living compared. Like Minmatar Republic isn't like a poor, like as poor as people kind of treat it compared to like it used to be really bad. Like there were some times when it was bad, but like it's improved since the government changed to the tribal council and all that.
Yeah, I'm now thinking my newsletter is too expensive for.
I mean, capsuleers routinely spend ridiculous amounts of money on like the dumbest things, like plain shirts for like $1 billion ISK, like
I spent hundreds of million ISK on corpses.
Think about those plain white shirts that say like the brand on the inside of the tag, and they're like $200, and we're like those rich people, right?
So with that, I have to ask, why does frozen food cost 31 ISK?
It's a lot of frozen food.
It's enough to feed a station, right? Like you're talking.
It's a lot of food, right?
Yeah. Well, anyway, so the newspaper's going out again. That email list is you go to your mail, by the way, in game, and you click mail lists, and you join TIS, capital TIS, and then there's a space, and then news, and that'll bring you the daily paper directly to you in EVE Online, and it's only like 3 or 4 paragraphs per day, so it's not going to overwhelm you. Okay, thanks everybody. We are going to go to the Alliance tournament in progress now and check out some of the matchups that are there. Some pretty cool grudge matches. But thank you all for coming. We'll see you next time on Talking in Stations.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.